My girlfriend, Grace, invited me to her house in Bambili today. We had been dating for a while, but I had never visited her before. Of course, she had invited me many times to come and see her. But I always turned her down. Until today. I finally decided to visit her. When I reached the address she had given me, I saw my beautiful girlfriend waiting for me. She was dressed in shorts, and she had come to pick me up from the gate where the bike dropped me. "Is this your parents' home?" I asked as soon as I got down from the bike. She nodded.
Truly beautiful.
I followed her toward the house, admiring my love as she walked ahead of me. "They aren't home yet, but they will come back later," she said as we entered the parlor. "Make yourself comfortable," she added. I looked around. "Such a nice house," I said. She smiled and went into the kitchen. A few minutes later, she brought me a plate of spaghetti. My girl really knew how to spoil me with food. Real love. I sat down and started eating. The spaghetti was delicious. My girlfriend had already gone back into the room to get some water for me. Then suddenly, my phone rang. It was my girlfriend, Grace. I answered. "Hello, David. Where are you?"
He said he was there, David.
"I've been waiting for you at the gate," she said.
He's coming
I
for
laughed.
us.
"What do you mean you're waiting for me? I'm at your house, and you just served me food." "Stop this joke, Grace." There was silence. Then she asked, "Which house?" I replied, "House 30p. Her voice suddenly changed. "30p. Shouted. I said 30b. I froze. Then I asked, "Then who served me food here?" But before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and follow us for more African stories. And whatever you do, stay with me until the end. Because what happened inside that house, I promise you, you won't see it coming. Then Grace screamed through the phone. "David, did you say 30p? I said, "Yes." She immediately shouted, "Please, please, get out of that house now." I became confused. "Why?" Her voice was shaking. "Nobody has lived in that house for the past 15 years. I stopped eating. Then she said something that made my entire body freeze. "People believe House 30p belongs to ghosts." I stared at the plate of spaghetti in front of me. I was still trying to swallow the food in my mouth. "House of what?" I asked. I tried to swallow the spaghetti quickly. Then suddenly, the phone went silent. "Grace. Hello." I couldn't hear her anymore. Maybe her phone battery had died. There had been no electricity for almost 24 hours. I shouted, "Grace. I can't hear you." Then, click. I heard a door lock. I looked toward the door. Click. Another door locked. Then another. Click. One after another. Every door in the house began locking by itself. I stood up slowly. My heart started beating faster. Then I heard a deep voice from somewhere inside the house. "In this house, you either play our game correctly." There was a long silence. Then the voice continued, "Or you die." I froze. Suddenly, my entire body became cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't even swallow the spaghetti that was still in my mouth. I thought, this is the end of me. And then, I woke up. I was sweating heavily. I looked around my room. It was all a dream. But one thing still frightened me. I could still taste the spaghetti in my mouth. I woke up suddenly. My heart was beating like a drum. I looked around my room. Everything was normal. No strange house. No locked doors. No mysterious voice. Just me, lying on my bed. I took a deep breath. Thank God, it was only a dream. I got out of bed and went to the bathroom to wash my face. But as I looked into the mirror, I noticed something strange. There was something stuck between my teeth. I opened my mouth and looked closely. A small piece of spaghetti. I froze. I touched it with my finger. No. I remembered the dream. The house. The woman. The plate of spaghetti. House 30p. The voice. Everything came rushing back into my mind. I quickly grabbed my phone. I called Grace. She answered after a few rings. Hello, David. I didn't even greet her. Grace, what's the address of your house again? She became confused. What kind of question is that? I swallowed hard. Just tell me. She paused. Then she said, 30B. I closed my eyes. You're sure? She laughed. Of course I'm sure. Why are you asking me that? I didn't answer. Then she asked, David, are you okay? I looked back at the mirror. And that's when I noticed something behind me. A woman was standing in the doorway. I turned around quickly. Nobody was there. I looked back at the mirror. The doorway was empty. But on the mirror, I saw something written in the steam. 30p. My hand started shaking. Then my phone suddenly went dead. And from somewhere inside my room, I heard a woman's voice whisper. You left before the game was finished. I turned around slowly. And this time, I wasn't dreaming. Part 3, the house of 30p. I turned around slowly. But there was nobody behind me. The room was completely empty. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to convince myself that I was imagining things. Then my phone suddenly came back on. One new message. It was from Grace. I opened it. The message said, David, don't go anywhere. I need to tell you something. I immediately called her. She answered. Grace, what is going on? She was silent for a moment. Then she said, I didn't want to tell you this before. My heart started beating faster. Tell me what? She took a deep breath. My grandmother used to live in house 30p. I couldn't speak. Then she continued. She disappeared from that house 15 years ago. I remembered the dream. The locked doors. The voice. The spaghetti. Everything. I asked. Grace, what happened to her? Grace whispered. Nobody knows. Suddenly, I heard something behind me. Clink. I slowly turned around. The plate of spaghetti from my kitchen was sitting on the table. I hadn't prepared spaghetti. I hadn't even cooked anything. I stepped backward. Then Grace screamed through the phone. David! Don't touch it. I froze. Why? She said. Because my grandmother always cooked spaghetti before someone disappeared. My phone slipped from my hand. The lights went off. The room became completely dark. Then I heard that same deep voice from my dream. You came back. I couldn't move. The voice continued. So now we can finish the game. Suddenly, the lights came back on. Everything was normal. The plate was gone. The phone was on the floor. And nobody was there. I ran outside and never looked back. The next morning, I went to meet Grace. She was waiting for me outside a small cafe. I told her everything. She listened quietly. Then she said something I will never forget. David, I never invited you to house 30p. I stared at her. What? She showed me the address she had actually sent me. 30B. Not 30p. I opened my phone and checked the message I had received. The address really said 30B. Then I asked, "So who sent me to 30P?" Grace looked at me. Neither of us had an answer. We decided never to talk about that house again. But 3 days later, I received another message from an unknown number. There was only one sentence. "Thank you for playing." And underneath it was a photograph. A photograph of me, sitting inside house 30P, eating that plate of spaghetti. I dropped my phone, because the photograph had been taken while I was asleep. And that's when I realized, maybe the dream wasn't a dream after all. The photograph kept replaying in my mind. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that house. House 30P. And that plate of spaghetti. At around 2 a.m., my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I didn't want to answer. But then another message appeared. "Come back." I immediately switched off my phone. I told myself it was over. I wasn't going anywhere near that house again. The next morning, Grace came to see me. She looked frightened. She said, "David, I found something." She handed me an old photograph. It was a picture of her grandmother standing in front of house 30P. But something was strange. Standing beside her was a young man. I looked closely. My heart stopped. It was me. I looked at Grace. "Who is this man?" She shook her head. "I don't know." I stared at the photograph. The man had my face, my hairstyle, even the same small mark above my eyebrow. But the photograph looked like it had been taken more than 15 years ago. Then Grace whispered, "David, there's something else." She turned the photograph around. Written on the back were 5 words. "He will return one day." Suddenly, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. There was silence. Then I heard the same deep voice. "David." I couldn't breathe. The voice continued. "You finally remembered." I whispered. "Remembered what?" The voice replied. "You were never visiting the house for the first time." The call ended. I looked at Grace. She was staring at me. Then she asked, "David, what did he say?" I couldn't answer. Because at that exact moment, I remembered something from my childhood. A house. A woman. A plate of spaghetti. And a little boy standing beside me. The little boy was me. I looked at Grace and whispered, "I think I've been there before." Then my phone vibrated one final time. Another message. This time, there was no photograph. Just one sentence. "Come home, David." And underneath it, 30P. I dropped the phone. Because I finally understood. The house wasn't calling me back. It was reminding me that I had never really left. I couldn't sleep that night. The words kept repeating in my head. "Come home, David." I didn't understand what they meant. But there was one thing I knew. I had to find out what happened at house 30P. The next morning, Grace and I went there together. We stood outside the abandoned house. The gate was rusty. The windows were covered with dust. Nobody had lived there for years. At least, that's what we believed. I pushed the gate open. Creak. The sound echoed through the compound. Grace grabbed my arm. "David, maybe we should leave." I looked at the house. "No. I need answers." We walked toward the front door. It was already open. I stopped. "Grace, did you open this door?" She shook her head. We stepped inside. Everything was covered in dust. Then I noticed something on the dining table. A plate. My heart started racing. It was the same plate from my dream. And beside it was a handwritten note. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. The note said, "You were 8 years old." I looked at Grace. She looked confused. I continued reading. "You came here with your mother." Suddenly, memories began coming back. A little boy. A woman holding my hand. A house. And a terrible storm. Then I remembered something else. I had been inside this house before. But I hadn't come here alone. I looked at Grace. "My mother brought me here," she whispered. "Why?" Before I could answer, we heard footsteps upstairs. Slow footsteps. Step. 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 Grace grabbed my arm. I looked toward the staircase. Then a woman's voice came from upstairs. "David." I froze. The voice sounded familiar. Very familiar. Grace whispered, "Who is that?" I slowly looked toward the staircase. And then I heard the voice again. "My son." My heart stopped. Because I knew that voice. It was my mother's voice. And my mother had been missing for 15 years. I couldn't move. For 15 years, I had believed my mother was gone. And now, I was hearing her voice inside house 30p. Grace held my arm tightly. "David, your mother." I nodded slowly. "That's her voice." The footsteps stopped. Then we heard a door opening upstairs. Creak. I looked at Grace. She whispered, "Should we go?" I wanted to say yes. But something inside me told me to keep going. We slowly climbed the stairs. One step at a time. When we reached the hallway, there were several old doors. Then I heard the voice again. "David, come inside." I walked toward the door at the end of the hallway. My hand was shaking as I reached for the handle. I opened it. And there she was. An elderly woman sitting beside the window. I couldn't believe my eyes. "Mom." She slowly turned around. It was her. Older. But unmistakably my mother. I ran toward her. She stood up and held me. For a moment, neither of us could speak. Then I asked, "Where have you been all these years?" She looked at Grace. Then back at me. "I was trying to protect you." I stepped back. "Protect me from what?" She pointed toward the hallway. "This house." I looked confused. Then she continued. "When you were 8 years old, something happened here." She paused. "You saw something you were never supposed to see." My memories began returning. The woman from my dream. The locked doors. The deep voice. The spaghetti. Everything. Then my mother said something that completely changed the story. "That wasn't a ghost." I stared at her. "Then who was it?" She looked toward the door. Her voice became very quiet. "Your father." I froze. Because my father had died. 15 years ago. I stared at my mother. "My father." She nodded slowly. "Your father died 15 years ago, but before he died, he made me promise something." I stepped closer. "What promise?" She looked toward the old dining room downstairs. "Never let you come back to this house." I felt a cold sensation run through my body. "Why?" My mother took a deep breath. "Because the night your father died, you were here." Suddenly, another memory came back. I remembered sitting at that same dining table as a little boy. My father was standing beside me. There was a plate of spaghetti in front of me. Then he said, "David, whatever happens tonight, don't open that door." I looked toward the hallway. The same hallway I had just walked through. Then I remembered the sound. Click. A door locking. Then another. And another. My mother continued. After your father died, you kept asking about this house. You couldn't remember what happened. I whispered. But why did you disappear? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Because someone was watching us. Grace suddenly interrupted. Who? My mother looked directly at her. The person who sent David those messages. My phone suddenly vibrated in my pocket. Everyone became silent. I slowly pulled it out. There was a new message. No number. No name. Just one sentence. You should have listened to your mother. Then, the lights went off. Grace screamed. And from downstairs, we heard a plate fall. Crash. My mother grabbed my hand. Whatever you hear, she whispered. Don't go downstairs. We stood completely still. Nobody moved. Then we heard it again. Clink. Something was moving downstairs. Grace whispered. David, what was that? My mother tightened her grip on my hand. Don't answer it. Then a man's voice came from downstairs. David. I froze. It was my father's voice. Exactly as I remembered it. David, come downstairs. I looked at my mother. She immediately shook her head. That's not your father. The voice came again. Son, I'm waiting for you. I felt tears come to my eyes. I hadn't heard my father's voice since I was a child. I took one step toward the staircase. My mother grabbed me. Don't. Suddenly, Grace pointed behind us. David, look. At the end of the hallway was an old mirror. And in the mirror, I could see a man standing behind us. I turned around. Nobody was there. I looked back at the mirror. The man was still there. He was wearing the same clothes my father had worn on the night he died. Then the man slowly raised his hand and pointed toward the dining room. My mother whispered. He wants you to remember. The lights suddenly came back on. The mirror was empty. But on the floor was an old photograph. I picked it up. It showed my father, my mother, and me as a little boy. But there was something strange. Behind us stood another person. A woman I had never seen before. On the back of the photograph were 4 words. She started everything. I looked at my mother. Who is she? My mother stared at the photograph. Then she whispered. Your father's first wife. I looked at my mother. My father's first wife. She nodded. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then I asked. But I thought Dad was never married before you. My mother looked down. That is what he wanted everyone to believe. I felt my heart sink. So what happened to her? My mother took a deep breath. She disappeared after your father left her. Grace stepped closer. And what does she have to do with this house? My mother looked toward the staircase. Everything. Suddenly, we heard a woman's voice from downstairs. You finally told him. We all froze. My mother turned pale. I slowly looked toward the staircase. A woman was standing at the bottom. She was dressed in an old-fashioned dress. She looked directly at me. Then she smiled. David. I couldn't move. She slowly walked toward us. My mother stepped in front of me. Stay away from my son. The woman stopped. Then she laughed softly. Your son. She looked at me. Ask your mother who your real father is. My eyes widened. I turned toward my mother. Mom, what is she talking about? My mother couldn't answer. The woman smiled. Then she whispered. Your father wasn't the man you thought he was. Suddenly, the lights went out again. And when they came back on, the woman was gone, the woman disappeared. I stood there in shock. Then I turned toward my mother. Mom, tell me the truth. She remained silent. Who is my real father? She finally sat down. Her voice was trembling. David, your father wasn't the man who raised you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then who was? She looked at me. The man in this house. I felt my heart drop. What man? Before she could answer, we heard a loud sound from downstairs. Bang! Grace grabbed my arm. My mother stood up quickly. We have to leave this house now. We rushed toward the stairs. But when we reached the bottom, the front door was locked. My mother tried the handle. Nothing. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice whispered. You wanted the truth. A pause. Now come to the dining room. I looked toward the dining room. The door slowly opened by itself. Inside was a table. On the table was an old envelope. My name was written on it. David. I walked toward it. Grace whispered. Don't open it. But I had spent my entire life looking for answers. I picked up the envelope. And as I opened it, I saw a photograph. My mother. A young man. And a little boy. Me. On the back of the photograph was one sentence. Your real father is still alive. I looked at my mother. She covered her face. Then she whispered. He's the man you've been calling your father for the past 15 years. I froze. But he died. She slowly looked at me. No, David. She paused. He never died. I couldn't speak. He never died. My mother slowly shook her head. No. I stepped backward. Then where is he? Before she could answer, we heard footsteps outside the house. Slow footsteps. Coming closer to the front door. Step. 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 Grace grabbed my hand. David, someone is coming. My mother looked terrified. She whispered. He's here. The footsteps stopped. Then. Knock. Everyone froze. Another knock. 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 I looked at my mother. Who is it? She didn't answer. Then a man's voice came from outside. Open the door. I recognized the voice immediately. It was the same deep voice from my dream. My heart started racing. I slowly moved toward the door. My mother shouted. David, don't. But it was too late. I opened the door. A man was standing outside. Older. Calm. And staring directly into my eyes. I couldn't breathe. Because I recognized that face. It was the man from the old photograph. The man I had believed was dead. My father. He looked at me and said, It's been 15 years, son. I stood completely frozen. Then he smiled. Welcome home. And behind him, I saw the woman from the photograph. She was standing in the darkness, watching us. I looked at my mother. She was trembling. Then my father said something that made everything even more terrifying. Now that you're finally home. He paused. We can finish what we started 15 years ago. I stared at the man standing in the doorway. My father. Alive. After 15 years of believing he was dead. I looked at my mother. Mom, what did he mean by finish what we started? She couldn't answer. My father stepped into the house. The woman from the photograph followed him. Then he closed the door behind him. Click. The sound made my stomach drop. I immediately remembered my dream. The doors locking. The spaghetti. The voice. Everything. My father looked at me and smiled. You remember now, don't you? I shook my head. I don't remember anything. He walked toward the dining table. On the table was another plate of spaghetti. Exactly like the one from my dream. He pointed at the chair. Sit down. I didn't move. Grace stepped closer to me. My father looked at her. You brought someone with you? Grace replied. I'm not leaving him. My father smiled. Then you should probably hear the truth too. My mother suddenly shouted. Don't listen to him. My father turned toward her. After 15 years, you're still trying to protect him. Then he looked back at me. David, that night wasn't an accident. My heart stopped. What night? He leaned closer. The night you thought I died. Silence filled the room. Then he whispered. I disappeared because I wanted to see who would come looking for me. I looked at my mother. She lowered her head. Then I realized something. She already knew. My father picked up the plate of spaghetti. He placed it in front of me. Eat. I stared at the food. Then I remembered the words from my dream. You either play our game correctly. My father smiled. Or you never leave this house. And suddenly, the lights went out. Part 13, the last choice. The lights went out. Complete darkness. I could hear Grace breathing beside me. Then my mother's voice whispered. David, don't eat it. Suddenly, a match struck. My father was standing beside the table, holding a small flame. He looked at me. One bite. I stared at the plate. My mind went back to the dream. The same spaghetti. The same house. The same voice. But this time, I understood something. The dream wasn't warning me about the food. It was warning me about trust. I pushed the plate away. I'm not playing your game. My father stopped smiling. Grace looked at me. My mother stepped forward. That's my son. For the first time, my father looked angry. Then the woman beside him spoke. He remembers everything. I looked at her. Who are you? She slowly removed the necklace from around her neck. I recognized it immediately. It was the necklace my father had given my mother when I was a child. My mother covered her mouth. Where did you get that? The woman smiled. Your husband gave it to me. I looked at my father. Then at my mother. Everything became silent. My father finally said, there are things you were never supposed to know. I replied. Then tonight, I'm going to know all of them. I stood up. Grace stood beside me. My mother joined us. For the first time, we were facing him together. Then suddenly, the front door unlocked. Click. My father looked toward the door. And the woman whispered. It's too late. I grabbed Grace's hand. My mother opened the door. We ran outside. But before I left, I looked back at house 30P. My father was still standing in the doorway. He wasn't chasing us. He was smiling. Then he called out, David. I stopped. He said, the truth you're looking for isn't inside this house. He pointed toward me. It's inside you. And then, he closed the door. Bang! That was the last time I ever saw him. Or so I thought.